Cool. Hey guys, it's Mike from the Off Grid Kitchen here. Today we have Joel from Redback. Hey Joel.
Hey Mike, it's good to be here, mate.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on today, mate. So, look, let's get straight into it. Tell us a bit about Redback. Where you go, what do you do?
Mate, so we're a inverter manufacturing company based in Brisbane. So we work out of the University of Queensland campus here. We're an Australian-owned company, and we manufacture specifically at the moment hybrid inverter systems and inverter charger systems for on-grid solutions at the moment. I know we're going to be chatting a bit about off-grid solutions and stuff, but specifically on-grid. So a couple of the key points about our equipment and what we design, and I guess perhaps where it's a bit different is that it's a all-in-one sort of solution. Ease of install, that's what we're kind of after in this space. Well, the name Redback is quite a autonomous name with an Australian product, I'd like to think. So perhaps, that's who we are. We got about 35, 40 staff here. We're just up the road from you guys, so almost a stone's throw away. So we are local and local guys as well. So
cool. So you guys are just up in Queensland at the university.
University of Queensland in Inverter. We're on campus there. We've got a big building to ourselves, which is great. We do all our research, our testing, our development here. All our software is done here. So big building on site. It's not on the main campus. We're on the Long Pocket campus, which is sort of more a tech center. We've got a big facility here that we like to think that we have a bit of an open door policy, but I guess that was probably a bit before some of the COVID stuff. But I guess perhaps if you want to come and visit us, give us a bell. We can organize something. We're very, very happy to show people around and have chats and tell them what we do here, because it's pretty exciting.
I love that testing wall you guys have in the sun out there. How many inverters you got out there sitting out in the sun?
Oh gosh, there's last I looked, there's about 30 odd inverters. Couple of big, there's one that we call the bunker, which was actually a chemical testing room. So it was practically a bomb-proof room. And we've been able to put inverters all around the outside, and we've painted it up. It looks quite pretty, all Redback. We've got another, almost like a bunker again, but it's not quite bunkerish like the first one. We've got inverters all along that as well. We've got a heap of PV on those roofs there, so we can test all of our equipment and quite exciting. It looks good and looks professional. So.
Totally. Yeah. So, most of the people sort of watch the stream for us are, they all live off grid, or it's a common question I get called every single week about people that want to go off grid when the grid's available. And it's something, there's so many different meanings what people, what do they think off-grid living is? What does off-grid living mean to you?
Good question. Off-grid living to me, it comes in, I guess, a couple of different forms. Yes, when I think of the term off-grid, I think of it being quite rural. I think of not having access to the actual network, the grid. Although my time at Redback over probably the past 4 to 5 years, I've come to think of it a bit more of still perhaps being grid connected, but perhaps not utilizing the grid. I guess that's been my perspective of the last bit, working with on-grid solutions with battery storage. You can still be grid connected, but not utilize the grid. And in my mind, that's still, an element of not being or off-grid living, right?
Yep. No, that's it. Yeah, we have lots of people that don't want to ever use a generator and they go off-grid, and it's just like I always tell them, there's sound with candles. There's weeks of rain that we have here in Australia in the wet season, and there's just no sunshine. So without a backup source, either a generator or using the grid, it's pretty challenging to be completely self-sufficient off-grid.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to run a generator or would use the grid as a backup. So.
Absolutely, yeah. So we do get the question a lot with us, with our equipment, from designers, installers, or even homeowners per se, that want to consider going off-grid. And they ask the question, is there generator inputs on your equipment? And well, no, we don't have generator inputs or generator specific functionality with our equipment. However, there are additional, from an electrician's perspective and installation perspective, there are other ways that generators can, I guess, in fact, operate parallel, separate to our equipment on site. So,
yeah, no, definitely. It's pretty simple to put in a switch, for example, to turn your hot water over to your generator in that situation. So your Redback just runs your lights, your TVs, your fridges in blackout.
Yep.
The generator can just heat your hot water.
Yeah.
In that situation. So
larger loads, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's it. So I think people that want to go off grid haven't really experienced the life of living with a generator.
Yeah, can think of camping and then that's with a bit more luxuries, right? But you got to be conservative. You got to start thinking a little bit more along the lines of an electrician, right? You don't have access to this somewhat of an infinite energy source where you can run all your loads at once and not have an issue. Whereas now when you go off grid, you've got to, you got to be a bit more diverse in your load usage on site. You've got to be a little bit more considerate of when loads are used, perhaps at the same time, and perhaps even stagger the use of your loads, because the moment you use a number of loads at the same time, you're going to reach limits very quickly.
Yeah, got a mini blackout.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, totally. Okay, cool. So, mate, tell us a bit about I know Redback, for me, we love Redback product because it's Australian. It's a really good quality product. Tell us about the two different products that you offer. And I suppose one of the ones that last year was really good is, I think you might actually have some competitors now, but it was one of the only 3-phase battery backups available in the Australian market for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So last year I think there possibly was a period of time of about maybe a couple of months where we were the only solution in that space. So we have a product called the ST10000. So that's what we call it, our smart 3-phase hybrid inverter system, and that is a 3-phase backup, 10 kilowatts. 10 kilowatts across the 3-phase, split across the 3 phases, which does provide a UPS functionality. So when the grid drops out, we are instantaneously providing power to the backup side, up to 10 kilowatts, again, depending on battery capacity that's connected to it. So if you have one of our cabinets, it will output 5 kilowatts across the 3 phases, but unbalanced, you can go up to a maximum of 3.3 on one phase. No, it's a little bit technical. Bear with me. I will get to a specific point in its operation. You go 2 batteries, you can get the full 10 kilowatts out of the system. 2 batteries, so 2 cabinets, in that case. With the 2 cabinets, you get the full 10 kilowatts output from the system, so 3.3 per phase. And it's a synchronous 3-phase output. So if you did need to actually run a synchronous load on the backup side, up to the inverter's maximum output, it has the capability of doing so. Again, functions are a little bit different to other systems. We tend to talk to people who want to run the backup side of things, as some people, I guess, and you probably hit this too, and tell me, it'd be interesting to hear your stance on this, but whole of house backup, that is the phrase, I guess, that some people use in this space, but whole of house backup, in my opinion, is not quite, especially being on grid to a degree, is not quite a thing, right? Because the moment you think of whole of house backup, you got to cater for the whole of house backup in a backup scenario, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars in equipment and batteries just to be able to do whole of house backup, if they want to run the house like they would with the grid being available. Whereas we tend to like to say, well, essential loads in the event of an outage, we can run that. Is that do you get that sort of comments a lot in your experience?
Yeah, well, before the Redback inverter, the 3-phase was on the market. Pretty much, the thing these days is, if you get the money, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. Even just 12 months ago, that was a possibility, but not really. It never made sense. So yeah, most of the time you do backup for someone on a 3-phase house. You just do the lights, TVs, and fridges, so those appliances wouldn't run. It's just not worth it financially. And how often do you really have blackouts?
Exactly.
Yeah, most people, unfortunately, when they make the decisions, when the grid's available, they're normally putting batteries or solar in from a financial return, where a lot of customers that are off grid are doing it from a more ethical, and there is people on the grid that do it from an ethical or philosophy, sort of what they want to achieve in life. But most of the time it's a financial decision. So it doesn't really make sense to back up the whole house and try and charge your electric car when there's a blackout.
In and out. Look, now we've had that conversation with a number of people just recently, charging their car in the event of an outage. Look, it's possible, right? It can happen, but people quickly forget that the conversion from your power rating to energy storage, and if you look at electric cars with the capacity that they can run with, in order to get that energy inside those batteries, you're looking at 30, 40, 50 kilowatt arrays just in that space of a day to simply charge that system. It's almost non-viable from a standard grid connect, install, and design perspective, right?
Yeah. Well, we've got of an electric car. We got a 22, maybe 20, 25 kilowatt solar system here at work. I don't know, I lose count sometimes. And yeah, we really struggle to be 100% self-sufficient of a day charging the car, running the business from solar. It's a challenge. It's a big system.
Yeah, great. Do you end up taking from the grid to charge that car at certain times?
100%. Yeah. It's a challenge. Because we got batteries here as well, and so our batteries are designed around our lights and computers and stuff in the blackout. That's sort of it.
Essential services, right?
Yeah. So, when the grid's available, it really makes sense. Like I said before, like someone that really wants to get rid of the grid and put a generator and stuff in, like it's, my opinion, if the grid's there, leave it. It's the most reliable backup source you will have.
Yeah.
Compared to a generator. So, yeah.
I think in some of those cases too, you end up, even if you want to actually disconnect your mains from the grid, I think you still have to pay for the point of supply to some degree in some places. I'd have to double check, but I know in Queensland a few people who have inquired around going completely off the grid. If the grid connection is still out the front of the house, there's still a rental or a fee that they have to pay just to have that connection at the front of the house too.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of grey areas around that. And look, yeah, if it's there, use it. Because
exactly.
My big thing with staying connected to the grid is you're actually helping more staying connected to the grid, because you can actually share your excess solar. A guy told me once a really good way is like, Mike, if your neighbour hates solar and you're disconnected from the grid, or if your neighbour hates solar and you're connected to the grid, you can feed your excess solar back to the grid. And my neighbour at the time was a great example. She hated solar. She hated everything I did in life. She's at work and she's living off solar, but she doesn't even know it, because my excess solar is powering her load, powering her house. So you actually better stay connected to the grid is the reality. You'll do more benefit for the community, but stay connected to the grid than getting rid of it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, financially as well, there's a few options there that still make it quite viable as well. So
no, that's it. So cool. So you guys do that inverter in a 3-phase and a single phase, the exact same inverter. The single phase is a bit smaller.
Yep.
And then you also do the AC coupled inverter.
Yeah, so this is a new product of ours that we launched beginning of this year, which we're pretty excited about, called the SB series, the Smart Battery. So for we call them the SB, we've got a number of we've got a series of numbers that follow the two letters, the SB, which are in reference to the battery capacity, which is a bit different to our hybrid units, which were more in reference to the inverter capabilities, the output of the inverter. But the SB series comes in a 7.2 kilowatt hour battery, a 9.6 and a 14 kilowatt hour battery. And they're just a simple AC coupled unit. The AC coupled unit is particularly, a bit different to the hybrid, meaning the hybrid has both battery and PV inputs, and that hybrid unit can manage it all, whereas the AC coupled unit is just got battery inputs and AC outputs, which often will run in conjunction or parallel with an existing grid tie system on site, meaning that the unit will charge off the solar's excess and then will also discharge to the loads at night when the solar can no longer meet those loads. So we got this I guess you could say bucket effect, where we're scooping up all this excess solar, which in most cases around Australia nowadays is sold back to the grid at a low rate, and then after that solar is finished operating, normally you'd be consuming power, but in this case you've been able to store it in a bucket, in a battery, and this has been that will now be able to offset the usage that would normally come from the grid, but you can now pull it out of the batteries. So that's that AC coupled effect. Well, great for retrofits, great for people that already have pre-existing solar systems and don't need any more solar, but in fact want to invest and look at a battery. So the other benefits of our AC coupled units, the SBs here, is that they do have backup capabilities. Again, with the backup capabilities, keep in mind the inverter's output and capacity based on the demands and what you need in that scenario. But it nonetheless, it has those capabilities and fills a niche in our portfolio of equipment that we sell and provide through wholesalers to clients of that retrofitting space. Whereas, selling a hybrid system to someone that already had solar may not want to go down the path of, or may not need to put solar on, but they're still paying for solar inputs on an inverter system. So.
Yeah, cool. So if the customer's already got solar panels, they're probably better off looking at the AC coupled inverter.
Yep, absolutely. Again, the few assessments around what that solar system on site's actually doing for them. Are they able to sell power back to the grid? If they are, then if that's the case, you can actually now with an AC coupled solution now store that energy inside your batteries for later use instead of selling it back at a lower rate.
Yep, cool. And so Blackstart, tell us about Blackstart. A lot of people, I would compare this product, probably not compare Huawei and LG Chem sort of on the market. A lot of people take for that battery side of life. But the one thing I know that Redback has over that Huawei LG setup in the AC coupled is the Huawei doesn't have any backup. So when there's a blackout or the grid failed, you can't get power out of your battery. And that's where the AC coupled with Redback actually does have that, which is awesome, because if it fails, you still get your lights on fridges and stuff like that. But explain Blackstart protection. It's
Blackstart it's a term that's beginning to come out of this battery solar industry. I don't feel it's actually got a hard reference just yet. I think it's about to. I believe both you and me are almost on the same page here on it, which is good. It's in reference to when a system completely switches off. There's no more solar, there's no more battery available, so as a result there's no more energy or power for the system to draw upon to power other loads. The system needs to shut down, and as a result of it shutting down, it's blacked out. Black start is in reference to the system in that scenario being able to somewhat self-start in the event that it's completely dead. So yes, our system has that capability. So in the event of an outage, when the sun's not out and the batteries have reached the minimum state of charge, as long as the next day when the sun comes out, and that happens quite regularly, the system will turn itself back on, which will then commence the battery charging, which will then commence powering the loads in the house. So that's what we, in reference to Black Start, because there are, like you said before, there are the manufacturers, other products out there in the market that spruik that they can provide backup power, but what often happens in those scenarios is that when the grid drops out and the system is powering the loads, the moment that the battery runs out of capacity and it reaches its minimum, the system will not turn back on until the grid comes back on. Yeah. I guess that's the explanation of that black start versus other systems that don't have that black start, meaning that you don't have this capability of running for prolonged periods of time when the grid's out. You only have that small leeway of runtime until the system is completely dead, and then you need the grid to turn that back on.
not totally. So yeah, it's interesting. I see a lot of people that get prices and designs for system, and they're so much cheaper one than the other, and straight away you see it just doesn't have that blackout protection. So literally, if the grid does fail, you don't have batteries, and people don't realize the extra costs associated that with the extra things that require to make all that work. So I don't know, all your products have that, which is great. That's why I love Redback products.
Yeah. So just to clarify too, our AC coupled solutions, the SBs, they are only AC coupled. So in the event of an outage, yes, they can only supply power until the battery runs out. But our hybrid solutions do have that DC coupled. But again, if you are after that that prolonged running of power in the event of an outage, because you perhaps suspect that you're going to run for extended periods of time in an outage, well, those hybrid solutions are definitely the right way forward.
Yep, no, definitely. So, mate, so from your point of view, I know we get a lot of inquiries about Tesla, and I know a lot of the reasons why Redback's better than Tesla. From your point of view, from Redback's experience, what's the reason that your product's better than Tesla?
Without sort of getting into too much of a word of wars with Tesla, perhaps quite clearly, Tesla is an AC coupled solution. Redback, and when we say AC coupled, I'm referring to how the renewable energy gets into the battery. So an AC coupled solution has its limitations. It has some advantages, but when we're talking in respect to off-grid living and perhaps running for prolonged periods of time in the event of an outage, this is something that I guess as a system designer or someone considering purchasing a system would need to be across and understand this particular functionality of this AC coupled effect, meaning that if that battery in the event of an outage, and a Tesla can run for prolonged periods of time in an outage, but it's AC coupled. And the moment that battery reaches minimum state of charge during a period of time when there's no solar, that system shuts down until the grid comes back on. Whereas a DC coupled solution, in the Redback specifically, as well, the system can shut down in the same way. There's no solar, but as long as the next day when the sun comes out, we can commence that charging, which can turn the system back on and can keep running. So that's one point. The second point is that the battery charging efficiency in a DC coupled scenario is, well, it's a lot more efficient. When I say a lot, we're talking maybe percentages of, maybe 3 to 5 to, in some cases, maybe 10%. It doesn't sound like a lot when I say those numbers. However, in the course of a system's lifetime, that can be a significant amount of energy that you perhaps missed out on and haven't been able to use as a result of that. That's getting that energy into the batteries. It's a lot more efficient in that scenario. Less inversions, less conversions. Very, very efficient.
Yeah, cool. I always say, we'll just put an extra panel up, it'll cover the losses.
Exactly. More panels is always a good solution here. So, that's probably my two main ones.
Yeah, look, for me, what I really love, it's about, because with Tesla, you're buying a 14 kilowatt hour battery pack. With Redback, you can buy 7, 10. You've got options, and you can start with a couple of batteries. And there's a lot of people that just want to have batteries that, and I always recommend, if they don't really have the budget, start the Redback, put half the batteries in, put 7.5 kilowatt hours or 7.2, whatever it is, and just run your lights, TVs, and fridges, and get some data, get some monitoring, and see how you go.
Yeah, get a feel for the battery, right? You get to start to work out what it's like, and you start to work out capacity, rate of discharge. You really start to see the effects of it and what it means to be running with batteries, right?
Yeah, when my wife and I, we were off in the middle of Sydney for quite a period of time, and we used to 6 to 8 kilowatt hours a day in total. That was what we used. An electric motorbike that I charged from the system as well. So, with the right education and being energy efficient, you can get away with minimal. I think the more people, I see the people that get themselves in trouble with trying to go off grid is they want to run everything and anything and just not be energy efficient. And, like I said, you do anything you want if you throw the money in it.
You can absolutely. But 90% of the people that are out there, they always want bang for buck, right? They always want that good deal. So for solutions that are on grid but kind of have that off grid living effect, then your hybrid, your battery storage solution there is also a one step in the right direction.
No, that's it. So cool. And so we've got a couple of minutes left before we finish up. And
nice.
I know you've had lots of experience in the off-grid world, not just a Redback. If you want to share some stories, so maybe some tips for people that want to go off-grid and live this lifestyle, like from your experience in the industry, what's some tips for people and to help them out? Yeah.
So one of the big things that when I was doing a lot of off-grid design and was always the initial conversation with the customer. They have a need to go off grid. In a lot of cases, it's around a price comparison, getting the grid to a point or a location. So they get a price from a retailer or from a power provider that can actually run the lines, and then that's pretty expensive. Let's compare that to an off-grid solution. So we talk about the off-grid solution, and in a lot of cases, depending on the length of which they needed to run and the price comparison, an off-grid solution really works. So the initial conversation was, what does it actually mean? How does it operate? How do we work in this scenario? The best bit of advice, or the most common conversation I had with a lot of people, was be energy efficient before you consider going off grid, or before you start consider using this battery system. One of my little mottos was back in the day, it's not the size that counts, it's how you use it. And that's in reference to batteries, right? So people might be going around bragging, oh, we got a 100 kilowatt hour battery. And that really meant nothing to me because really, like you've experienced, only pulling 6-7 kilowatt hours of energy usage per day when you were living in the middle of Sydney. That's excellent in my opinion, because that's being efficient. That's being efficient before you've gone to the need to consume any energy. So that was always the big conversation that I had up the front, was be energy efficient before you consider pulling power. So what would that mean? That would perhaps mean looking at different ways of heating that's not pulling energy. Specifically, we were looking at solar. Queensland, northern New South Wales, solar hot water works well in comparison to perhaps guys that might be living further south. We would be looking at gas appliances. We'd be looking at insulation, looking at the energy efficiency properties of the house and perhaps where they'd be living, so that there would be less need to draw upon power and energy when they perhaps needed it. And in that way, we could look at keeping those prices low with the battery capacity specifically, and the rate of discharge from the batteries as well through an inverter system was you could keep that to a minimum. So that was probably my one big tip for guys considering going off grid, was to consider the efficiency beforehand. Yep.
Yeah, I always talk about the best money you'll spend is energy efficient appliances. If you get to build your house, if you get that design right, your solar system becomes lights, TVs, and fridges. So
absolutely.
Cool.
Awesome. Man.
All right, well, thank you. And so anyone out there is watching that, if you're thinking about getting batteries and stuff installed, have a chat to your installer and get them to get you some information on Redback if you really can on the batteries at Redback. And like I said, it's one of those awesome products that I love to really promote to our customers, to whack in a couple of batteries, get some data, and you can always add in the future. If you've got the budget, just put the bigger batteries in the future. And that's something as well, you can actually add more cabinets to these, can't you?
Absolutely.
Grow them. So in the future, if your family grows or energy consumption grows, you can always expand your system and go from there. But we'll put the links to the Redback Technologies websites and stuff down below, so you can actually ask your installers for more info and get a pricing on these cool products installed. So
awesome.
All right, Joel. Well, thanks for your time.
No worries, Mike. Thanks again.
All right, have a great day.